haven't got much done in the last couple of weeks on my bigger boat. Just been a little too hot for fiberglassing, a little too hot for me. Plus I've been busy with a lot of other things. This time around, I'm going back to working on my other boat that I restored a couple of years ago. It was a 1969 Sea Ray SRV185. Looking back through my old videos, it appears that I didn't actually put together a video about what I did with the engine in this boat, which is just as well, because apparently I needed to do it again anyway. So originally, when I bought the boat, it had a Mercruiser 120 of unknown vintage, unknown origin, unknown background sitting in it. It was kind of sort of installed in the boat, not properly installed. In fact, with the way the installation was done, the boat would have probably sunk in about 15 minutes if it didn't sink, and if you could have gotten the engine running, it probably would have destroyed something in there because the alignment wasn't even close. However, when I got the boat, of course, as you can see in the rest of the series, I totally rebuilt the boat, structurally, new interior, the whole bit. The engine itself, I did a little bit of cleanup on it, took a closer look at it, and discovered that it had a small crack in the water jacket on the outsides, which I patched and just kind of hoped for the best. So then I got it running, sitting in the garage, and with a water hose going to it for cooling. And it started up and ran okay, but then when I shut it down, I noticed that I was water getting into the cylinders. So I pulled the head off, pulled the riser off, put a new head gasket in it. The exhaust riser was rusted out. The manifold seemed okay. So I put a new riser on it, new head gasket. In the process, I put a new Pertronics ignition in it because the points looked pretty worn out. And fired it up again, and everything seemed good. The alternator that came with it was an old alternator that needed an external regulator. Since I didn't have the regulator for it, I just went and bought a brand new alternator, a one-wire alternator with built-in regulator. As far as the gear case is concerned, and the outdrive, it all seemed good, other than the top seal was leaking a bit, so I got the proper tools, pulled it apart, put new seals in the upper part of the drive. I also disassembled the transom bracket and gimbal housing, cleaned it all up, lubricated it, put a new gimbal bearing in it, new bellows, all the usual maintenance type things. Once the boat was ready to go, I installed the engine, installed the drive, and got the boat in the water at the cottage, and took it out for a run. Started up just fine, ran fine, but I couldn't get more than 8 miles an hour out of it because I hadn't done anything with the carburetor. So that winter, I pulled the carburetor out. There's another video on here of me rebuilding the carburetor. It turned out one of the main jets was completely clogged. So then I cleaned that out and got it ready to go for the spring. So then that following summer, I got the boat back in the water with my dad, decided to go out fishing, and new carburetor, well, with the rebuilt carburetor, it started fine, ran fine, got up on plane, had full power, whatever full power is for a Mercruiser 120. And everything seemed good until I got back and later checked the oil in the engine, and turned out it looked like a milkshake. So apparently what was happening was there was another crack, an internal crack in the block that didn't really open up until it got to full RPM and full operating temperature. So that engine was done, Just started keeping my eyes open for another engine to put in here or another engine to build for it. And then a few weeks ago, I found a Mercruiser 140 online for a reasonable price, and so I went and picked that up. Now, as it turns out, it was a newer Mercruiser 140, still based on the same GM four-cylinder block, but the rear mounting points were different and the exhaust riser was different, so it wouldn't match the hardware that was in my boat already. But I bought it anyway because the engine seemed good otherwise. We started it up in the guy's shop and it seemed to run okay, so I bought it. And once I got the engine home, I sat it down side by side with my old engine in the garage and started to figure out what I needed to do to make it fit the boat. So first thing I did was pull the exhaust risers off both engines, realized that those were not interchangeable. The mounting hole spacing as well as the holes for the water jacket around the exhaust riser were different. But I figured, okay, I'll figure that problem out later. Then I pulled the rear bell housing flywheel cover that had the rear mounts on it, pulled that off, and realized that the flywheel and the engine coupler were different as well, the coupler for the drive. So I removed the coupler and the flywheel from both engines. On the old engine, the flywheel and the coupler are attached together with studs into the crankshaft. On the newer engine, the flywheel was attached with bolts, and then the coupler was attached with different bolts to the flywheel. Fortunately, the threads and the holes in the crankshaft are the same between the two engines, so I just pulled all the studs out of the old one, put them in the new one, put the flywheel on, put the coupler on, put the cover with the mounts on it. That part was done. So, back to the exhaust riser. My next plan of attack was to try to swap the manifold, complete with the carburetor. Since I had to rebuild the carburetor anyway, I thought, okay, if I just change the whole manifold and carburetor from one engine to the other, then I can mount the original riser on. Well, I did that, went to check it, and even though the bolt hole spacing was identical between the two manifolds, the exhaust ports on the Mercruiser 140 head were too large, and the old manifold wouldn't cover the ports properly. So, next logical solution was to just replace the whole cylinder head, which I did. Not a big deal. The only thing is I just need to get a new head gasket for the 3-liter 140 and the head bolted right on. No problem. Put it on. Set the preload for the lifters. Mounted the new old manifold on the newer engine and the carburetor, and everything was going to work now. So now I could actually mount the engine in the boat. Then I started working on the cooling hoses, and the hose routing on the old engine versus the new engine was different. And I needed to go with the hose routing of the old engine to match the manifold. So I started doing that and realized that the water pump pulley was going to be a problem because the new engine came from a boat that obviously had power steering in it, and the pulley had extra grooves in it and was thicker and was now going to hit one of the hoses. So decided to change the pulley. Well, the pulley didn't fit the old water pump, or the old pulley didn't fit the new water pump. So then I had to change the whole water pump. So I eventually did get the thing all back together. What I ended up using of the new engine I bought was the block and anything that was internal to the block, as well as the starter and the fuel pump, and the ignition, the alternator, the cylinder head, the rocker cover, the manifold, the carburetor, exhaust riser, flywheel, coupler, rear engine mounts, all came off my old engine. Anyway, it's in the boat now, and it's running just fine. Anyway, so yes, you can make a newer style Mercruiser 140 fit into a boat that had the older style 120 in it, but it does take swapping a lot of parts. Anyway, that's about it. But because I built the engine twice, this is kind of 2 videos in one. Hopefully next video I'll be back to working on the other boat.